Friends, we are at a new point, at a new interesting location. This is a ghost town lost in the Turkish outback, the city of Kayakoy. Not so far from Fethiye and Olydines is a city lost in time and mountains, the population of which left this place more than 100 years ago. It was an entirely Greek settlement. I propose to take a walk around this place so that you can see what is left of this place. And you will find out what attracts this place of small travelers today. We will also talk about the Greek-Turkish deportation of the population that took place 100 years ago. How Greeks and Muslims were resettled from their lands. More than 3,500 houses used to be on the site of this city. There were schools, Orthodox Christian churches, and pharmacies. Well, even I wonder what we will see today. Come with me. Kayakoy is a ghost town near Olydines and Fethiye. Why ghost? Because in a small town there are about 3,500 houses, 3 churches, a school, a hospital, that is, all the necessary infrastructure for a small settlement, and this city has been completely empty since 1923. Nobody lives here and most of the houses have fallen into a dilapidated state, and some have completely collapsed. But why did this happen? So we became interested in this place and decided to see this relatively unpopular tourist place in the vicinity of Olydines in Turkey live. A brief reference to the history of the events of that time. In history, there was a Greek-Turkish population exchange that took place in the history of interactions between countries, but in reality it was a forced exchange of the population of Greece, Turkey and Bulgaria in 1923. The exchange was then the result of the defeat of Greece in the Second Greco-Turkish War, which lasted from 1919 to 1922, and the conclusion of the Lausanne Peace Treaty. It is also customary to say that this event was the last stage of the Asia Minor catastrophe, so-called in Greek historiography a tragic event in the history of modern Hellenism. The end of 3,000 years of Greek history in Asia Minor. To put it simply, it was the expulsion of the indigenous Orthodox Greek population from their ancient habitats. But let us go in order. Of Kayakoy itself was founded in the 18th century by the Greek community and was called Libessos. Later it was renamed Livisi. The settlement had all the necessary infrastructure for a small town. During its heyday, the population of the city ranged from 10 to 20,000 people. For that time it was already considered a decent settlement, a city, and not a village at all. In 1923, the Greco-Turkish War ended, as I said earlier, and as a result of which the Greeks had to leave Turkey and return to their country. Thus, Kayakoy became empty, because the Turks did not want to live here. Kayakoy is built on a mountain, and the Turks mainly built their houses on the flat terrain, and therefore they did not want to move to the houses of the Greeks and live on the mountain. Gradually, the houses were destroyed by natural events, such as earthquakes, and local residents living nearby took away some parts from the houses to themselves to repair their huts. And in 1957, an earthquake that occurred in Fethiye further worsened the condition of the village of Kayakoy. At present, the Greek houses are completely abandoned. Somewhere there are small restored houses closer to the main road between cities, but this is only a small part that is used by the indigenous population for their needs. All the paths in the city are covered with stone. The feeling is that you are walking through an old medieval town. Of course, the size of this abandoned town is impressive. I thought it was a real village, a few abandoned houses and that's it. But in fact, it turned out that there is all the infrastructure for a comfortable life, churches, pharmacies, schools. And the number of houses is more than a couple of hundred houses. When we climbed the mountain, we could understand why tourists like to come here so much. For example, I have never seen such a large abandoned place with empty houses anywhere. It must be said that the Greek-Turkish population exchange was carried out from May 1, 1923 in accordance with the convention and protocol signed in January 1923 between Greece and the Turkish Grand National Assembly. In other words, it was an organized document according to which the resettlement of the population was carried out. It was not something momentary and cruel action. It was a forced exchange. Yes, indeed, the exchange under this protocol, in addition to this settlement, affected about 2 million more people and was of a forced nature, especially in relation to the Greek population Asia Minor and Eastern Thrace. The main goal of this exchange was extremely simple: to homogenize the national composition of the states formed on the territory of the former Ottoman Empire, and to prevent the development of separatism on the part of potential ethno-religious minorities. We all know from my previous episodes on this channel that a large number of Greeks and Armenians, Syrians, Kurds continue to live in Turkey. And every time the state felt unstable, these historical minorities wanted either the collapse of the empire or revenge for the lost territories. Therefore, modern Turkey, under Kemal Ataturk, solved the issue of separatism in a similar way. It should be added that between Greece and Turkey, the exchange was carried out primarily on a religious basis, and not on an ethnic basis. This really needs to be emphasized and especially noted.
Merhabalar.
Hello.
Hello.
Merhaba.
Yes, Greek Muslims were forced to leave the territory of Greece, in particular the island of Crete. From there, the Cretan Muslims were resettled. You ask me, where are the Greek Muslims in Cyprus from? And you will be surprised, but the Emirate of Crete was located on the island of Crete in the 9th century AD. It was a Muslim state that existed on the Mediterranean island from the late 820s until the reconquest of the island by the Eastern Roman Empire in 961 AD. It must be said that at the same time as the Christian population left Turkey, that is, the lands of Asia Minor, even though the majority of Greek Christians from the interior of the peninsula had already lost the ability to speak Greek and switched to a specific dialect of the Turkish language in history. This dialect is called the Karamanlid language. As you can see, a lot is mixed up in this situation. And she was objectively speaking different. Population exchanges were constant. Also between Greece and Bulgaria, the exchange took place along ethnic lines. When Bulgaria and Turkey did not carry out a forced exchange of population. At the same time, almost all Orthodox Bulgarians left Turkish territory, while Turkic speakers and other Muslims continued to live in Bulgaria in significant numbers, despite the ongoing muhajirism. Yes, we have all seen photographs of the arrival of exiled Balkan Muslim muhajirs in Istanbul in 1912, when a similar deportation took place for them.
Куда пошел?
But here we come to the main square of the settlement, where the upper church is located. There is a large Greek temple here. It is officially impossible to get into it, as it is closed by government services for security reasons, due to the threat of collapse. But a simple path leads to it nearby, following which you can climb over the fence and get inside. The most important type of building in the city is, as you noticed, of course the church. The upper church, formerly known as Taxiarchus, is located on a dominating hill in the center of the settlement. The atrium here is surrounded by high walls. On the floor are geometric mosaics, amazingly accurately laid out from black and white pebbles. A door that opens to the south leads to the cemetery. Let us walk through this place. The church was built mainly of pressed stone with a smooth surface and covered with lime plaster. Outside, the walls are covered with a thick layer of pink plaster. The window frames and doorways are made of marble. Under the vestibule there is a cistern with 3 arches, which today is covered with rubble. Alas, time does not spare the building. Everything changes under the influence of natural elements. The wall frescoes of the church and the iconography in the interior of the church were unfortunately destroyed. The roof of this former church was built as a series of semi-vaults. A roof of the vestibule is made in the form of a saddle. How would you describe this place yourself? Write in the comments below the video. It will be interesting to read your opinion. By the way, I will add that in Kayakoy there is also a lower church, which is very well preserved. It is located at the entrance next to the ticket office. But getting there is not easy. Its facades will be shown at the end of this video. But for now I will just say that the lower church, formerly called Panaya Pyrgotisa, is located in the extreme western part of the city and is much better preserved than other religious buildings and the upper church. This was mainly because it was used as a mosque until the 1960s. The courtyard, surrounded by high walls, can be entered through a door on the east side. There, in the courtyard, there is a bell tower in the southeast corner, as well as a small cemetery in the northeastern part of the courtyard. The floor of the atrium is also paved with pebble mosaics, just like in the upper church. But unfortunately, it is badly damaged. 3 rows of benches adjacent to the courtyard on the south side were built for duty religious ceremonies. There are even bones in the crypt in the southwest corner of the courtyard, but they were collected from graves that were opened so that the places could be reused. On church holidays, prayers were said there for the souls of the dead. Here it is the only nave church built of hewn gray stones. Window and doorways are lined with white marble to give harmony to the appearance of the church. 2 color mosaics on the floor in the courtyard add stylistic completeness to the structure. On the arches and blind niches above the windows there are repeated relief motifs. On the pediment of the door leading inside the church on the north side there is a mosaic on which the date, 1888, is clearly visible. Once the church was used as a mosque. Lime white, with which the frescoes were painted over at one time, turned out to be a good protection. However, in recent years, the church has suffered from robberies. Some of the architectural elements and frescoes have been stolen. One of the frescoes was found in a private collection and restored as far as possible. However, the saint's face and paint were completely scraped off. Today, the building has iron bars, which, however, do not harmonize with the surroundings at all. This was done to protect the monument. But let us go further. As you have already noticed, the buildings in the city were built without a specific development plan, but always in such a way that each individual did not block the light and panorama of neighboring buildings. The main feature of the development of the city was the preservation of an open panoramic view to the north, even at the expense of receiving sunlight. The development plan of the settlement was not prescribed and the buildings were built so that they could naturally fit into the local landscape. The needs for building materials were covered from what was at hand: local gravel and a certain type of cement and lime, which were taken from caves that reached the southern point of the upper church. The large, straight-angled, smooth-surfaced stones used in some of the structures appear to have come from other, earlier buildings. Most of the buildings in this city are residential buildings. They have 1 or 2 floors. The ground floor was usually used as a stable or storeroom. Most houses have 1 or 2 rooms. There are few houses with 3 rooms. Each house had a living space. At the entrance to the house there was a cistern to collect water. The upper part of the cisterns was also used as housing. Almost all roofs were flat and covered with compressed pieces of earth. In the interiors there are traces of fireplaces, niches and places for attaching curtains. Cisterns and toilets were always located outside the houses. The houses did not have bathrooms as such. People must have bathed in zinc bathtubs covered with wood and built into special cupboards or troughs located indoors. Since the region suffered from a lack of sources of drinking water, the city had a large number of cisterns to collect rainwater. Most of the buildings can be seen slopes that carried rainwater to the cisterns. What can I tell you about the events of those years? Unless we can dive into the background of what happened. First Prime Minister of Greece Venizelos hatched plans for the restoration of the Byzantine Empire. In other words, the creation of a new united Greece, whose idea became known in historiography as the Great Idea. The Prime Minister of Greece Venizelos believed to reunite the Greeks in their own state, but this was not destined to come true as a result of diplomatic conflicts and many failures. Initially favorable conditions, such as the defeat of the Ottoman Empire in World War I according to the Mudros Truce and the support of the Entente countries for Greek aspirations, including the direct issuance of a mandate by them to occupy part of Asia Minor territories inhabited by Greeks and other Christians, turned into an actual betrayal by the Allies during the outbreak of the war, who stopped all aid to the Greeks. Military, technical and financial support was provided to the government of Turkish nationalists by the Bolshevik government of the USSR. As a result, Greece, despite the advantage in the number of troops and ammunition, suffered a crushing defeat from the forces of the Turks. Then in Greece there was a military uprising on September 11, 1922, which ended with the overthrow of the king Constantine I. The concluded population exchange also doomed the Christian population of the same city of Izmir to massacre by the Turkish troops and the burning of the city by the Turks. At the same time, the British troops, without interfering in what was happening, watched everything in the bay of the city. Soon the bulk of the Christians were evacuated to Athens, and many left for America and Australia, following the evacuation of Christians, and this is about 2 million people. The eviction of the Muslims themselves from northern Greece, mainly from Macedonia, followed. As a result, Thessaloniki, an ancient Greek city that had largely lost its Greek Slavic majority by the beginning of the 16th century, was re-Hellenized. In addition, the island of Crete became purely Greek and Christian. At the same time, all, excluding Constantinople, the cities of western Turkey, historically Greek Adrianople, Smyrna and many small settlements, lost their Christian inhabitants. At the same time, the exchange was clearly unequal. Approximately 2 million evicted Christians arrived in Greece in place of 500,000 Muslims who left, which created a social crisis in Greece, led to the growth of slums in large cities, primarily in Athens, Piraeus, mass unemployment, growth poverty and hunger, mass immigration abroad. So the events of those years were events of major upheavals for many settlements. And this ghost town is only a small part of a larger story about the resettlement. That's probably all. We got such an excursion. Thanks for watching up to this point. Well, I recommend that you watch other videos about Turkey on this channel. There is a lot of historical overtones. I think you'll like it. Subscribe to the channel in advance, click on the bell and do not miss new releases. Also, if you have the opportunity, you can make a small donation so that the releases are even brighter, richer and more frequent. To do this, just make a QR code translation on the video, or use the links in the description under this video. God bless you from adversity. And we'll see you in future episodes. Don't miss it.